Welcome everyone to the TELedvisor and Learning Design webinar this month. We've combined those special interest groups to look in detail today at visual approaches to curriculum and learning design. And we have three great business schools who've lent us their presenters, and we'll hear from one now. We'd like to welcome now Michelle. So Michelle is an educational designer at the Australian Institute of Business in Adelaide. She's relatively new to the role because she started in COVID, which is, you know, a weird thing. So time has no meaning, of course, as we know anymore. But before that, Michelle worked at Flinders Uni and at Wollongong Uni in a variety of learning and support and specialist roles. So we're so glad that she's able to come and talk to us today about her work in mapping a research program. Thanks so much, Michelle.
Thanks, Penny, and thanks for the invitation to speak to you all today. So, yeah, I've been using one of the tools, Microsoft Planner, that we have just with our Office 365 or Microsoft institutional subscription. But before I get into how we've been using that to map both units and the research coursework, I'll try to set the scene a little. Okay, so we at Australian Institute of Business, our flagship program is really our online MBA, so that's fully online. And I work in the online learning team, which has educational designers, learning materials developers. We have library as part of that, and we also have a media developer and educational technologists. And so we work with our academic team to co-design our subjects for that. So that could be standard subject rollover, redevelopment, and then I've also been involved in developing a couple of new subjects since I started, and just recently was passed the new subject of research methodologies to develop that with our research coordinator, and we had a writer ready to go for that subject. And that was as a result of our accreditation process and a minor course review. So I guess I came into that wanting to understand how this subject fit into the overall picture. So this So I haven't prettied up this document at all. So this is what has come from the course review. So you can zoom in on this if you need to. But basically, we have 4 pathways or four programs. The first 2, the Graduate Certificate of Research Methodologies and Master of Management, are pathways into a DBA. And so this new subject, research methodologies, fits in here as a core subject across those 3 programs. And what I quickly realised was that as this subject was being developed, that it was going to affect a whole lot of others, and we're going to need to do this concurrently. Without going into too much detail, the current structure means that the candidates would work through a series of method subjects as compulsory subjects after doing an introductory subject to applied research. And so what in the new structure then, they will do these core subjects, but then that will guide them towards their choice of elective in which method particularly suits their research topic. So some of these subjects have been running for quite some time, and so there are going to be changes that need to happen. I needed to be able to track the impact across those, and also to set a foundation in the orientation program and the other support structures that we have for candidates as they progress. As well as that, working with multiple academics, we have a new subject steward role. So our subject coordination changes per term, and we usually run 6 terms a year, so 8 weeks, so it can change coordinator quite often. And we have a new role of subject steward to monitor these subjects. So really starting off in a new sort of direction. So this is an example of how we would use Planner for a particular unit, and similar to the ones we saw before for a unit, we try to map this out with our academics, and each column, which we would call a bucket here, is one element or section. So we would have like a weekly or modular structure, and then under there, each of these cards it will represent a single element of that. I'll just go into the actual live one for this, and we use the sorry, I'll just open up one of the tasks, and then here we actually use it for as project management tool as well as giving us that visual overview of how the unit is looking. We can break down the tasks here and track that work. We share files on here as well, so that we can work through that content and in context. So yeah, it's similar to a Trello board. The other thing is that all the files that are attached there are then shared, and then we can continue to collaborate on those. So coming back to the overall, we sort of kick this off for the new subject, but then to start mapping this across the series of subjects, then we've created one now where in this case this is all of the research subjects. So based on that diagram with the blue boxes that I was showing earlier, each of these buckets now is a particular unit. So we have our orientation that we bring into this as well, so that we can set that foundation, and then we have the introductory subjects. So one of these is existing, and then we have a new one, and then moving across the new research methodology subjects. And what I really wanted to do was to be able to discuss and map the learning outcomes right down to those within a particular module. So these, I'll just go back actually. So we, to do that, to be able to filter the view, I guess, depending on what we're focusing on, attaching these labels, so I can then filter by all of the core subjects in a particular program, or by the learning outcomes at a subject level, or just the assessments to track those across. And then as I come up with questions or issues, I've also created this label for questions, so I can filter by that, and then we can just work through those one by one and tick them off and track that, how each part is impacted by a decision that's made or an idea that someone comes up with. So this shot is just an example of a filtered view where we can just look at the subject level learning outcomes. So these are some of the elective method subjects. so case study research, action learning, and mixed methods. So these are, so we want a consistent experience for candidates. So after they've selected the methodology, to make sure that within the nuances of each of those areas, that they will have a consistent progression through that gets them towards their research proposal that they'll be doing. So then I've been able to extract the subject level learning outcomes, and for those subjects that are existing, to break that down and go, okay, are we following a similar pattern? Does this fit or not fit? And really to discuss this across people with a very different specialist areas, to then bring that in so we can get a consistent experience, have integrated an integrated approach to all of the coursework subjects, and help us to prioritize and scope the work as well. So I think I'm just about out of time, but I can just show you how this might work from the live one. And apologies that it's going to be really tiny, but I guess when we're trying to visualize these things, you need that bigger view, and then you need to be able to drill down. So if I just want to look at subject learning outcomes across, I'm just going to scroll across now, and then I can look at them across the progression and see how we're scaffolding that development. And that's yeah, that's what we've been working on.
It's fantastic, Michelle. Thank you so much. We've been very interested to see the nuts and bolts of that approach, and to get your overview on that. Thank you so much.